As she said, you know, I went to a predominantly Caucasian school. I went to the University of Kentucky. So my dating pool was very limited. We had a lot of athletes that looked like me, that had the same upbringing, but a lot of them were dating women that didn't look like me. So for me, my pretty felt as if it wasn't pretty enough.
Now, I'm starting there because this same lady is going to go on to explain why she is not, quote unquote, giving up on her black man, and she wants and will find her black man. I'm not telling you to date out, but okay, girl, let's get into this. Let's get into this video. All right, let's do it. Hey everyone, welcome back to The Misconceptions. Grab your coffee, water, tea, whatever you're drinking, go and get that. Today we're going to review a video by Ralph Richard Banks. I want to shout out Petty because I was on his live stream and he brought this up and I realized I had to review this video. So sit back, relax, grab your coffee, water, tea again, and let's get into it. Let's watch it together. So let's watch the whole thing together, starting with this clip.
And Professor Banks joins us on The Filter. Rick, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you.
The premise at the beginning, why black women are so unlikely to marry. Why is that?
Well, black women are unlikely to marry in part because black men are faring so poorly. As we speak, 1 in 10 black men in their 20s or early 30s are in prison across the country. 1 in 4 will go to prison. At the other end of the spectrum, nearly twice as many black women as men graduate from college. This leaves black women with very few partners.
So basically, you're pointing out that black women face the thinnest pool of same-race partners in the country. But I'm sure there would be a number of black men that would argue that point.
Well, a number of black men have argued that point. And in fact, one of the things I wanted to do with my book is to try to get to the bottom of this. And again, based on national data, the best available information, it simply is the case that black women are outpacing black men along a number of dimensions. Educationally, professionally, lots of black men are quite simply not able to be the type of partners that women want.
Are you saying the only way for a black woman to get married is to marry someone who is not black?
What? Are you saying the only way for a black woman to get married is to marry someone who is not black? Girl, who said that? Who said that? Not only is the restatement of Professor Banks' position uncharitable, it is completely inaccurate, right? I'm a bit confused about how this conclusion was drawn. Professor Banks is arguing for women to open their option. This would include the people they're already dating, i.e. black men, and other men. This does not exclude black men in any meaningful way. It's an attempt in some ways to break up the quote-unquote monopoly that black men have on black women, as black women are the least likely to date outside of their race. He's saying, open your option. Again, this does not exclude, it includes other people. While Pew Research highlights that 50 years after loving, black men are 2 times more likely to marry outside of their race. Not only that, they're most likely of any group of men, Hispanic, not a race, as the Pew Research will indicate, here's the graph, they're the most likely to marry outside of their race. So I don't understand why there is this burden for black women to maintain loyalty and keep up with making sure that their children are black or have a black father. That's weird. His interpretation is absolutely not based on anything at all. Like, it is not based on anything at all. But let's continue down this road.
Well, that's not the only way. I am saying that if more black women married across racial lines, that would be good for them because more women would have stable and enduring relationships. They'd have better relationships, in fact, than they might have with the black men who are available. And they would also benefit the black race because more African-American couples would likely wed as well.
Are you suggesting that black men can never overcome the obstacles which you have pointed out?
Are you suggesting that black men can never overcome the obstacles that you've pointed out? Go, wait. Yo, this interviewer, I'm gonna need a journalism degree. I'm going to assume this person has a journalism degree, a degree in journalism at some point. I'm going to need him to give that back because, girl, what? How did you form this? The description of the state of the black community by Professor Banks does not come with any indictment on black men's inability to be better in the future. In fact, he's saying black men need to be better and can be better, and the way to do that is for there to be mating competition when it comes to who black women choose to date and marry. Thus, if black men see black women dating other groups of men, they might, in his mind, become better partners for black women. He's saying they can be better. What do you mean? Also, he does say that you should include other people, again, not exclude black men. Therefore, black men who can compete in the dating market will have access to black women. Like, he's not excluding anyone. What do you mean? Are you suggesting that black men can never overcome the obstacles that you've pointed out? No, he's saying they can and should. Literally. Oh my God. All right, let's continue. If I were Dr. Banks, Professor Banks, Dr. Banks, I would be very frustrated right now. Let's continue.
Well, I'm saying many black men do. So there are lots of black men who are doing just fine. But it's also the case, and this is a national tragedy, I think, that black men are in many ways the most disadvantaged group of people in our society. In terms of incarceration, in terms of unemployment, in terms of marginality along all sorts of dimensions, black men in the aggregate are not faring well. And that's something that the book tries to come to terms with.
Now, stay with me here for a second, Rick. Would it be safe to say that if I came up with this conclusion, I'd be considered racist? I'm white. Would I be considered racist?
And you probably would be, and I think that's unfortunate, frankly. I do. I think that's unfortunate. I think it's unfortunate that people assume I'm white, or they give my conclusions even more weight because I'm African American or because my wife is African American. I think all of those things should not matter.
Has anyone suggested that you are racist?
Well, people have suggested that I am promoting genocide or that I am supporting the annihilation of the black race. In fact, until yesterday, every single radio interview that I've given was met with at least one caller making such an assertion. So that is an indicator, I think, of how severe are the social pressures on black women to remain within the race, even as everyone else, including black men, increasingly look outside of their race for marital partners.
I'm going to skip the entire part of it. If I came up with this, if you want to say the N-word, just say that. I don't care nothing about whether he thinks if he said it as a white man, he would be, I don't care, right? So let's move on from that. Calling it genocidal that black women want to date out or should date out ignores the reality of black men dating out. It is about controlling women's body. In a patriarchy, there is a kind of ownership that men believe they have over women's body. Therefore, while the men can go do whatever they want, it becomes a problem when women choose to go and do what they want, particularly for minority groups. And it's wild to put the burden of continuing a race on the women while the men can go and do whatever they want to do. Absolutely not. I think that is a gaslighting tool used against black women to make sure that they conform to ideas around race loyalty that no one else ascribed to. I think it is idiotic. I think that if you want women to be race loyal, then you also have to be race loyal. That is that on that. Let's continue. Also, who black women decide to date is absolutely only their business.
You mentioned you're married. You mentioned your wife is African American. If she had taken your advice, she might not have married you.
Well, if she had taken my advice, then she would have been open to men of all races. And that might, in fact, prompt me to be a better husband if I know I'm competing against everyone out there rather than simply competing against a limited market.
The name of the book is Marriage for White People. Professor Banks, thanks very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Yo, again, this man, I feel like they're not listening. Wait, your wife is African American. If she had taken your advice, she might not have married you. What? How do you know that this woman, his wife, Professor Banks' wife, didn't date all races of men? And Professor Banks was just the best man for the job, whatever that job is. Better partner for her. How do you know that? Again, the missing of the ideas in the book and the ideas being posited is the problem here. These people, and I think this might be an issue about cognitive dissonance and the unwillingness to listen and hear what people are actually saying, because it feels odd that it is so misinterpreted for you to come up with such a question. So is it fair to say that your wife would marry you if she read your book and agreed with your ideas? What? You're now going to have to prove that Professor Banks couldn't compete. And if he can, then he had a chance and he would have won. You also have to prove that the wife wasn't dating other races of men and decided that Professor Banks was the best man for the job. I don't understand that question. It implies that Professor Banks' idea is that black women should not date black men. And that's not what is being posited at all. He's saying make them compete. Professor Banks' retort that he will just be a better husband, I think is a good one. And it also underlines the idea that he does not believe black men can't rise to the occasion. He believes they can and that they should. He's saying that he would rise to the occasion, thus underscoring the most important part of his theory is black men should rise up to the occasion and do and be better. That's ultimately what he's saying. Agree or disagree, that is his position. Argue with his position. Don't create a straw man argument and then argue that. That is weird. I find that to be odd because this happens all the time. Anywho, he dismisses Professor Banks. Let's watch him dismiss Professor Banks. And he goes into a panel. Let's watch this.
The name of the book is Marriage for White People. Professor Banks, thanks very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
And we want to know what you think about the professor's new book. Go to NBC Filter on Facebook or Twitter, or share your thoughts in an email. We'll air them later in the show. The professor's book has caused a great deal of conversation. Joining us from the Los Angeles Urban League is Chris Strudwick-Turner, and the creator and executive producer of the TO show, Keita Williams. Keita, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, you go and dismiss this man, create this segment, remove him, and then bring on black women to talk about his book. I think this would have been more productive if the black women got an opportunity to question Professor Banks about his theories, and they have a back and forth where the person who wrote the book, who can explain the ideas in the book, get to talk to the women who might oppose or agree with the book. To dismiss him, where the interviewer obviously does not understand what is in the book because of the question he's asking, he presupposes that the conclusion drawn in the book, where he obviously didn't read or didn't understand, is that black women should not date black men, but date other races of men. That is not the conclusion of the book. The conclusion is that black women should open their option if they want to date and have long-term relationship that ends in marriage, or marriage becoming an opportunity for black women, more of an opportunity for black women. So the misunderstanding of his book is diabolical, and to then have a panel of two women and yourself who you do not understand what Dr. Banks is saying is weird. It is weird. That is weird. All right, let's continue.
The name of the book is Marriage for White People. Professor Banks, thanks very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
And we want to know what you think about the professor's new book. Go to NBC Filter on Facebook or Twitter, or share your thoughts in an email. We'll air them later in the show. The professor's book has caused a great deal of conversation. Joining us from the Los Angeles Urban League is Chris Strudwick-Turner, and the creator and executive producer of the TO show, Keita Williams. Keita, I'm going to start with you. You're single, correct?
Absolutely.
Is the professor right in his assumption?
Well, I ride the fence on that. I would say this. I'm an established, African American woman. I'm not married. So there has been a lot of struggle being in the realm that I am. I think the higher up you climb, there are a lot of professional women like myself. A lot of my friends aren't married, professional. There's nothing wrong. They don't have to have good credit. Everything's great.
Are they not married because they can't find someone who's African American to marry?
I think they're not married because it's difficult. We have a lot more competition, if you will, that has kind of made us feel as if we have to, as he said, step outside of the box is not our option that I'm looking for. You kind of date down, which is nothing wrong with dating a man who may not be on the same financial status as you. I just think a lot of African American women would prefer to marry a man that resembles them. I personally would.
Chris, you're married to an African American man.
In her words, let me read this. It is hard when you are successful as a woman to find a man of your race when you're black on your level. They aren't there. You have to date down, she claims, right? The first lady. Yeah, that's what the professor was saying. Wait, I'm so confused. She said she's on the fence. So, I watched most of this already over on Petty's channel, and I don't remember her defending the professor. In fact, I very overtly remember, and I started with this, her saying that she is not about to give up on her black man, which no one is saying you should, but you do realize your options then, right? Like you do. Anyway, let's continue.
Chris, you're married to an African American man.
I am married to an African American man. I've been married for 31 years.
All right, do you think you made a mistake? Because according to the professor, you did.
No, I don't think I made a mistake.
I'm sorry. Again, why was the professor dismissed and not here to explain himself? Because that is a bastardization of his theory, if I've ever seen someone bastardize a theory. Ever. Like, when you are married to an African-American man, she says yes. Do you think you made a mistake? According to the professor, you did what? Where did Professor Banks say if you marry an African-American man, you made a mistake? Where does he say this? Y'all, I'm gonna need that journalist to give back his degree. Yeah, no. I'm gonna need him to give up the show. How do you lack basic comprehension? I'm not even asking you to accept what it is that he's positing, Professor Banks. I'm not asking anyone to accept anything. But first understand before you reject. You can't reject something. Don't reject something you don't understand. Like, what do you mean? When did he say this? Also, even if you marry down, he doesn't call this a mistake. If you plan on only marrying black men in his idea, you might have to marry down. It doesn't mean it's a mistake. That could be a very conscious choice you make about who you want to partner with. He is just stating that if you want to marry someone on your level or above, generally, you have to open your options up a lot, actually. If you want to test his theory with this lady, what you do, which would still be irrelevant because it will be anecdotal. Dr. Banks is talking about the stats. You would ask her what her education level is compared to her husband, her income compared to her husband, her wealth compared to her husband, right? And then you would make the decision, oh, she married down, she fit the stat, or she didn't, she married down, she married across or up. So an exception to the rule, because then you were gonna face the actual stats about black women and black men and the status of the community. But as a sort of simple trick, if you want to push back against Dr. Banks, find out if this woman, black woman, married a black man who's doing better than her, financially and academically. You could do that. I mean, it's a bit personal, but if you want, you could do that and test Professor Banks' theory, which would not be a great test because it's one individual making it anecdotal, but you could do that instead of saying that the Professor Banks saying because you married a black man, you made a mistake. He never said that. That's not a thing. That was never said. Again, nowhere did Professor Banks say marrying a black man is a mistake. This is a leap in logic, if I've ever seen a leap in logic. But let me drink some of this before we continue.
No, I don't think I made a mistake. You know, okay, from my perspective right now, you marry out of love. That's what you marry for. It's not about economic status, and it's not about, ultimately those are things you have to think about, but you marry for love. I mean, marriage is hard, and sustained marriage is hard. So if you don't start from a base of love, you're in trouble, whether you're black, blue, purple, or whatever.
When you got married, did you think there's no way I can marry an African-American man because that's not going to work for me? That's not going to be enough for me. If I make that decision, according to the professor, you're marrying down.
No. The professor didn't say, if you make that decision, you're married. There's so many... I'm getting now to understand why people have so many problems with my channel. I think I'm beginning to understand why people have problems, because I don't think people are listening. I think people are hearing what they want to hear and then just running with that. The fact that the light is off in here is wild, and I did not realize the light was off or down. But because it's off or down, this is an aside. I'm going to keep it that way because I'm not re-recording this. I've been re-recording. I'm not re-recording. So she says, you marry out of love, not about economic status. Okay, I don't disagree with this, but actually I'm curious about her husband. I'm curious about her husband. It is what it is. I want to know more about her husband because, all right, I hate the idea that marriage is hard, by the way. Call me what you want. I absolutely despise, I'm not married. I despise the idea that marriage is hard, because the kind of hardship y'all are talking about, I don't feel like it's the kind of hardship that I was made for. I wasn't made for them kind of hardship, but I don't know what kind of hardship this woman is talking about, so I'm going to ignore it and say maybe she means that you have to compromise and care for other people and all of that. Because I feel like marriage should make your life easier, but it is what it is. Let's continue. They didn't read the book. They did not read the book. There is no way you're going to tell me you read the book and understood what you read and then make such an argument. The book doesn't claim that, and Professor Banks doesn't claim that. If you read the book, you didn't understand it. This was not stated, nor was it implied at any point during the book. Going out of your way to sort of misinterpret this position is evil, but it highlights the stupidity of the conversation being had, where absolutely no one involved in this conversation seemed to understand the position that Ralph Richard Banks is taking, or if they do understand the position the professor is taking, then they're intentionally misrepresenting it so that they have something to argue. How can you tackle any of Professor Banks's idea if you strawman all of his argument? I just think the segment is kind of pointless. I think the segment would have been better if Professor Banks was there to talk to the women and explain his ideas, and they can ask him questions so he can clarify the questions that they had, clarify his ideas rather, using the questions that they had. All right, let's continue. Because this is wild. They are hell-bent on misunderstanding this man, and that is diabolical.
I understand, and that's the stretch for me. I'm an intelligent woman. That's what he says. I'm an intelligent woman. I've got multiple degrees. I'm financially stable. I can make a choice about a relationship. If I decide I want to marry down, which I hated that, marry down, it's a choice that you make. If I'm making $150,000 and I fall in love with a man that's making $35,000, we think about that ahead of time and we do it.
But Keita, would you do that? Would you make $150,000 and marry a man who's making $35,000?
It depends on if he has, and I say this to say, it depends on what his true potential is. I think money, to me, comes and goes. I think the standards that we've got to look at is the quality of the man. There are a lot of women that I know who are out there doing very well, and with the economy, some of us have made 150 and had to take cuts, we're making 75. As she said, I went to a predominantly Caucasian school. I went to the University of Kentucky, so my dating pool was very limited. We had a lot of athletes that looked like me, that had the same upbringing, but a lot of them were dating women that didn't look like me. So for me, my pretty felt as if it wasn't pretty enough.
Your pretty felt like it wasn't pretty enough because the men in your group decided that they were going to marry other women. You better be making the argument better for Professor Banks than he could ever make for himself. This has to be cognitive dissonance. This has to be the kind of discomfort that comes with the realization of what is happening in the world, because ain't no way you just said that. She says, I'm an intelligent woman. If I want to marry down, I can marry down. She then explained that she hates the language, quote unquote, marrying down. Girl, it is what it is. You do not know anything about the book, because if she read the book, she would know that you can marry down if you want to marry down. You can marry down, you can marry up, you can marry up, you can do whatever you want to do. He, Professor Banks, suggests opening your options, because if you stick to your race, black, then the likelihood of having to marry down increases, because there's not a lot of black men doing well insofar as being able to compete economically and academically with women, black women in their group. That's what Professor Banks is saying. The ability to want to date whoever you want to date is not taken from you. It just says open your option. The idea is simple. If you're planning to marry black as a black woman, the chances are you will most likely marry down, is essentially what Professor Banks is saying. And I don't actually care what Juicy's done. I don't care what Juicy said, girl. Here's what Juicy said to y'all.
But the idea was that because they're both equipped to raise proper African-American children, but also get jobs of prestige, that would then open up opportunity for them to procure better partners. There is quickly movements that come about that are high society organizations that are there to cultivate high-class African Americans. And there are quickly movements that happen within these broader, the aspiration towards being included in these high societies and these organizations, even organizations that look to provide mutual aid to low-income black women or poor black folks would invest in these trainings. You can go back through Black history, you can go back through every black women's organization, and they are all offering some sort of training on etiquette, on ladylike behavior, and how to be better suited to catch the right kind of man. The Baptist Church and the AME Church and many black churches quickly take on, again, these similar programming and messaging about black women taking on an air of ladylike esteem so that they could pick the right partner.
Now, y'all know Jules play entirely too much. The idea that black women date up with black men in large number, large enough to include that section in her video. The title of the video is this. Look, black women do not date down. That is not true. It didn't justify Juicy having that segment in, but I had to remind y'all that Juicy was telling y'all that black women don't date down, but she then explained why black women dated down and didn't actually make the claim in any meaningful way that black women didn't date down. She was like, there are systemic reasons for it. This is what Professor Banks is saying, that black women tend to have to date down if they try to be race loyal. That's it, that's all. Would you make 100K and then marry a man who makes 25? Did they say 25 or 30K? Hey, Jesus be a bank account or a higher paying job, because girl, wait, like what happened? How is this a question? The lady was like, they were like, I mean, yeah, it's a potential, blah, blah, blah. No. By the way, the whole 100K for the woman and 20K, 25, 35K for the man, it's diabolical, and it's only asked of one race of women generally, black women. And so I think it is gaslighting, it is annoying, and you should want better for yourself. You can want better. And women tend to be gaslit into not wanting or not feeling like they can want more for themselves. And I'm going to get back to this. But so the men she talked about in her university were dating out and dating other races of women, and she felt some kind of way, but she's not about to date out. She only wants a black man, even if those black men are wanting other races of women. You go, girl. You do that. You wait. Your black king is coming. Good for you. Let's continue.
Marrying outside your race is not a formula for success in a marriage. I mean, my friends who are combos, which I call them combos, they have the same issues that we have black on black. I mean, you know, their joys, their happiness, their challenges, their whatever. It's absolutely the same. And with the economy, I mean, the economy can wreak havoc on a marriage. You know, whether you start, you know, with a disparity or whether you start equal and then something happens. I mean, bad money problems can kill a marriage.
But I think
let's talk about the marrying out is not a formula for success in America. No one said that. Economics can cause issues in a marriage. That's what the lady with the lock said. That's exactly what Professor Banks is saying. Like, I feel like the fundamental misinterpretation of what Professor Banks is saying is intentional. Because they're not disputing anything. They have not disputed a claim that he's made yet, right? So the professor's point still stands. But I'm also going to play this piece, again from Jules, but she's not the one talking now. The reason I'm going to play this, the reason I need to play this is because the gaslighting tactic happens apparently here and everywhere else, where when black women are told to want more, that they can have more and access more, everyone get up in arms, and I think that is a problem. So to solve that problem, here you go, and I will have nothing to add. I'll just move on after this is played.
I saw when you originally did this video encouraging black women to essentially date outside their race. The idea that
date everybody. There are great black men too. There
were a lot of stitches where black women were kind of like, well, culturally, I have a hard time with. Do I desire? Am I attracted to partnering with someone who's not black?
I think that black women have been manipulated and gaslit into thinking that they're some sort of traitors because they want the best for themselves. That is not language that is given to black men, and so I don't really subscribe to that. Again, I'm for all black women to win at the end of the day. And this is about just the best partner, whether it's black, white, Puerto Rican, or Haitian, as Lil Kim once said, right? And so, I mean, at the end of the day, this is why a lot of black men don't really like me. Because, no, they don't. I get a lot of hate DMs and emails and things like that all the time, because what's happening, and it's a conversation that a lot of us don't want to have, is that there is an evolution happening and black women are evolving past black men, unfortunately. It's sad. I'm not basking in this, but I want to keep it 100% real. And it's actually going to be necessary if you want to have that generational wealth to be able to live the life that you want to live at the end of the day. Again, I'm not saying date outside of your race. I'm saying date everyone. There are social issues I think there's so many excuses that are given to black men that we tend to forget about what's happening with black women as well. So I'm not really for the excuses for black men. People are talking about institutional hardships that happen that black women also face, right? And face, I would argue, actually more of.
I have nothing further to add. Let's continue.
My problem is this. If you're going to love and love is going to be colorblind, don't exclude what looks like you. If you feel like you're falling in love with someone who's black and blue and one eyeball, that's fine with me. But I'm not going to just try something new because you tell me that my black man's not enough.
But I also want to say...
Not my black man, period. My problem is when you exclude. Don't exclude what looks like you. Quotation. Girl, what are you talking about? Who are you arguing with? Who are you arguing with? That does not make any sense. You're the one excluding. You agree with Professor Banks. He is not excluding. You literally said you only want a black man. This is your preference. By the way, no shame at all. If that's what you want, that's what you want. I'm here for you. He said you should be open to date everyone. With whom do you have the problem with the exclusion issue? Who is excluding in this scenario? Professor Banks, who says date everyone, including black men, let them compete with other groups of men. Or you who say I don't want to date anyone else because I only want a black man. In this scenario, who is excluding? Go in. Like, I'm so confused. I am confusion. I don't know who these people are arguing against. I'm not going to try something, she says, new, because you told me that, quote, my, end quote, black man isn't good enough. So you are the one excluding other. I am not going to try anything new. Therefore, I'm not going to date out of my race because you tell me that, quote, my, end quote, black man isn't good enough. You have a problem with exclusion. It sounds like you have a personal, intrinsic, internal issue about your wanting to exclude other people, because Professor Banks did not tell you to exclude anyone at all. He said to include more people in the dating pool. Now, you can have a problem with including other people, but when you say you have a problem with exclusion and that they want you to exclude people who look like you, I don't know who you are arguing against. Like, that don't make no sense. Like, y'all had a whole segment on this and absolutely refused to engage meaningfully in what was actually said. That is diabolical. That is diabolical. Mind you, I will remind you of this. She was the one complaining that in undergrad, the football players, the black men in her college, singular, did not want to date women who look like her. They were dating other women, other races. But again, keep hope alive. You got this. You will find your black man. I believe in you fully. I do. Let's continue.
The professor said that, if you marry outside your race, black women have a better chance of having a stable, enduring relationship and a better marriage. I don't know where that's coming from. Mm-hmm. I mean, whether you married in your race, outside your race, problems come in all shapes. Goodness comes in all shapes and sizes and colors and whatever.
That's right.
So that leap that he took with that, I'm not quite sure where that came from. I'll give him credit. We are talking about it.
Yep.
You know, the book is selling, and that's excellent. And, you know, it's a good conversation to have, but that is a real stretch.
Ladies, the time is very short, so I'll ask you each. Give me like 10, 15 seconds, and then we got to go. If I had made the assertions the professor did, people would consider me racist.
Absolutely.
They absolutely would. That being said, is the professor racist?
I don't care nothing about that. This man said, I am going to die on the hill of wanting to say the N-word. Girl, we don't care what you believe about if you had made the assertion. That it's got nothing to do with you outside of bringing your pocketbook. Anywho, Professor said, if you married out of your race, you have a longer, better marital outcome. She said, where did he get this from? Now, I'm sure they didn't read the book. With all the citations in this book, with the fact around how long men and women stay married when they marry out, and with all the stats about the economic improvement, the economic access, and what associative mating is, and all of that, and how people tend to find their loved ones in university, and what kind of relationship lasts longer, with all the citations included in the book, I'm going to go ahead and say you didn't read the book or you didn't care. You're just making statements to make statements. It's like when people say, oh my God, what are Kamala's policies? You didn't care to go look it up. You didn't. You're just saying it to distract. Because ain't no way. Absolutely no way. Professor said that you should open your option. He didn't say you should definitely marry out of your race. He said date around and do not exclude people. She said she does not know where it was coming from. Again, I don't know why she's doing this. It is weird and wild. So I feel like we should end here, because I'm done with the thing, but we should end here and go over some stats, right? In conclusion, and to remind you all of some of the stats that are really unfortunate, there are systemic reasons for Black men's failure in the economy. And I think that is important to note. The first thing that I wanted to pull up on economy, and I'll put this is the Center for Economic and Policy Research. It should be flashing across the screen now. And I'm gonna put some excerpts, right? The first one says, because we typically assess joblessness among Black men based on the unemployment rate, we grossly underestimate the problem of joblessness for men, the harm it causes to Black communities, and the need for bold policy intervention. And this was said by Austin, who was the Director of Race and Economic Justice. Now, let's talk about the costing the government. The full cost of Black men's joblessness is about $50 billion a year, when considering that the official statistics undercut Black men's joblessness. Closing just the EPOP, which is the employment to population ratio, job gap, would add about $30 billion annually to Black communities and make significant reduction in Black poverty. So if Black men were able to get better jobs and find jobs generally, it would be better in terms of poverty outcomes in the Black community, lessen poverty in the Black community by $30 billion, right? And Austin then made his conclusion saying that now that we know the crisis is 3 times worse than we think it is, or 4 times worse if we factor in incarceration and mortality, which we'll get to that in a minute, maybe policymakers will be spurred to action. So this is an appeal for the government to step in and address the $50 billion that we are costing the government essentially because of joblessness. Now, we can talk about unaliving rate in the US. Let me put this up there. So Clifford Law Center research says that the recent spike in gun homicide, this is around 2019 to 2021, the recent spike in gun homicide have devastated Black communities in particular. While gun homicide rate rose 45% nationally from 2019 to 2021, Black Americans experienced a 49% increase. The gun homicide rate among Black boys and men have been increasing particularly quickly compared to other groups. The gun homicide rate for young Black boys and men ages 10 to 44 rose 43% over this time period, 24 in 2022 alone. In Black firearm homicide rate among ages 15 to 19 was more than 25 times the white firearm homicide rate among the same age group. In 2022 alone, the Black firearm homicide rate among ages 15 to 19 was more than 25 times the white firearm homicide rate among the same age group. Then we can go to the CDC, which we all know the stat about the leading cause for unaliving for Black men ages 1 to 44 is homicide. So there is that. We can talk about Black femicide, which we will not get into here because I've done so many videos on it and so many other people are now talking about it, which is good. We can talk about the lack of education in the Black community, where 44.3% of white men have a college degree versus only 26.5% of Black men. This you can find at ED Trust. Black women students far outnumber Black men at the nation's highest ranking universities. This you can find at the Journal for Black black education. Black men disproportionately are being imprisoned. Black people make up 14% of the population while making up 35% of the prison and jail population. This is wild. There are nearly 2 million more black women than there are black men. I could keep going on and on and on around these stats about availability of men for women, but it does not look great. This reality is being put forward in the book format, What is Marriage for White People? Do not like the name of the book, by Ralph Richard Banks. And I think it is important to discuss it truly and meaningfully, because in truth, the fact that black men marry out 2 times the rate of black women since Loving versus Virginia also lessens the dating pool, the availability of black men for black women. Like, at some point you have to recognize that you have to date out if you're going to find someone. Like, if ever black men right now decide I'm going to date a black woman in America, there would still not be enough black men for a black woman. Some black women would have to date out, or I guess engage in polygamy, because apparently that's something happening without people's knowledge right now. But that's neither here nor there. On that note, I'm going to end the video right here. I really, really appreciate y'all for coming. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you again later. Have a good one. Bye. I don't think black men are I don't think we're innately bad or broken. I think we have a lot of work that we need to do, and we have to start acknowledging that there is a problem outside of women and whatever women are doing. We have issues that we have to fix. And I think coming to the table and acknowledging our issues amongst each other and then deciding how to move forward to fix it, whether or not we're talking about individual changes that we have to make and also systemic level changes that we should engage with. I think we have to first acknowledge the issue and not just only blame the system. I think we can and we should, because of the history of America, slavery and racism and all of that. I think it is important to discuss generally and address those concerns, but I think we also have to take responsibility on an individual level in how we treat each other, how we talk about each other, and how we engage generally. Homicide rate through the roof due to us killing each other is wild, right? And then when we think about fatherless homes, think about what Cam Newton was saying, right? And how he didn't understand creating children with all these women was him creating broken homes. And what Nick Cannon is doing, and while I'm just talking about these 2 celebrities, I'm talking about a high level issue that we see as young men and we engage with and engage in. Like, this is not just happening at the celebrity level. Like, we still see so many of the children being born out of wedlock and not being cared for. And even if you're not married, because I'm not here to push marriage on anyone, like Rihanna shouldn't get married, I don't think, and Kiki should not marry that man. So I think that it's not just about getting married, it's about the fathers showing up and caring for their children. That's the first point. The second point is really think about what you're saying when you say welfare took black men out of the home. I think it's important to think about the statement in context, real life context. Like, even if welfare took you out of the home, right? Like, even if I concede that, which I will never do in a debate, because no, it didn't. And also, if you couldn't provide enough for your family and welfare had to step in, there's something that you need to consider there about your contribution to the home. But it doesn't mean you stop being a father to your children, right? And so it doesn't remove your responsibility to care for the children you helped to create. And so I don't really sympathize with the position that welfare took men out of the home. So I'm gonna end it here. Again, I don't think there's something innately wrong. I think that we have a culture that perpetuates a kind of degeneracy that we need to address. And I'm going to end it here. Have a good one. Bye.